then in 1936, we were on the move again. That time we moved to Wisconsin, to near Grantsburg, just south of Grantsburg. Anybody know where Grantsburg is? You know, you guys know. It's north of Amory, about what, 30 miles, maybe 40, 50, someplace in there. And my dad rented a part farm, part crops, half and half or something like that, from an Italian by the name of Richie. You've heard of Richie's. I think if you're around Cumberland, there's just oodles of them there. I think there's car dealers and everything else. Anyhow, we farmed on shares there, and his relatives lived in Cumberland. I remember one thing about him. For breakfast, he liked coffee, about half cup and the other half whiskey. That was his morning coffee. So him and Martin got along pretty good. This farm had a lot of acres. Had 1,000 acres in pasture. There were a lot of jack pine and stuff, so the cows had to wander a long ways to get something to eat. But anyhow, you could get lost in this woods, and the best thing you could do is, I remember getting cows a lot of times, is to make sure we had cowbells on the cow. We'd listen for the cowbells and then go for the cowbells. Once you found the cows, there's no problem going home then, because when you start chasing them, they know the way home. They knew which way to go. We had a bull in that herd all the time, and we weren't scared of him because we had a dog that just loved to tackle that guy, and he'd go around in circles for a while, and finally get a hold of his back heels and rip him and make blood come out. You've seen that when they do that. He wouldn't bother anybody, but if the dog wasn't around, I wouldn't have went in there.
Scary one, yeah.
Yeah, but he enjoyed doing that.
Actually, pretty valuable dog.
Yeah, he was, yeah. So, but getting the cows, and then that was the years of the drought and heat, where nobody had rain all over the country. We made hay up in the swamp, which is a reserve now. It's a boggy swamp, and we sold that hay. Trucks came and picked it up, and I suppose it come shipped down here. So we made hay that way, and also cut jack pine for pulp. And that was, I think as a family, we had to cut them into 8-foot chunks and peel the bark off them and pile them in a pile for the trucks to pick them up. And I think we made somewhere around $8 a day as a family. So, but that was work. And
So you and your brothers did this?
yeah, and Dad, and
Yeah.
everybody.
And you did that on shares too?
No, that we got paid about $8
Okay.
for doing that. Yeah. So that's when I realized, gee, it was terrible to cut all those trees down. They were beautiful trees, and they made rows for the trucks to drive through. In later years, that whole area burnt. So, because the trees were cut for one thing, and the fire went through it pretty quick. And some of the people from around here, I don't remember who it was, built cabins up in that same area. And that's what happened to that land later on. It wasn't too far from the St. Croix River. We planted corn by hand with those corn things.
Yeah.
The markers they used is they had 4 rows on the wooden planks, you know, to make the marks, and that was checked in, and then they go run one way and then go crossways, and then you hit that corner spot with the corn planter, hand corn planter. You've seen those work,
Yep.
haven't you? Anyhow, my brother Gene, I guess he got a little careless. He would miss that spot. He catch hell for that, so. But that was really poor crops, like all over the country at that time. But you guys don't remember any of that, do you? No.
No.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
So how long did it take you like to put in your crops then?
Well, we had a big family, so everybody had corn planters. But then you cultivated them with the horses, you know, across there. But it was so dry we didn't hardly get any corn out of it. That was in the sand. There was plenty of sandburs. Everybody knows what sandburs are, don't you? Ben, you know what they are? Huh?
No.
No? You go on the sand flats, there's some around Cannon Falls, and they are the meanest darn things. They got a round little ball, and they got a hook on them. They get into your hide, and they'll stay there. I mean, so they're miserable. Plenty of them.
And when you planted that corn, they cultivated that both ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They cultivated this way and
That was
crossways.
checking. Right?
Yeah.
Corn planters were
Some of the earlier ones.
available then, you know, that wasn't that early, but he didn't have that machine. We used his machinery, whatever he had there, so. We were still using a dump rake and a heel loader and.
But he had all them farm machinery to
Yeah.
use.
That time I graduated from the 8th grade, had to take a county test to be able to graduate. And by the way, I still have my report card too, so
Okay.
I'll show you how dumb and smart I was.
You only went through the 8th grade.
Yes, yeah,
That was at Grantsburg?
yes, that's the county seat, yeah.
So was that common at that time to just go through the 8th grade or not? Was it unusual?
No, they had.
Did a lot of kids do it or
I
not?
remember my mother asking me if I wanted to keep on going to school. Well,
Uh-huh.
first of all, we were quite a ways from the school. There were no school buses. And I suppose the next best thing, if I'd agreed to it, would have been to stay in town someplace, but I knew better than that too. Then I'd had almost begged to stay with somebody, you know, and that wouldn't have been down my alley either. So, but that's the way that was. But no, they had a high school there.
So did the other brothers then go on? I mean, this is kind of jumping ahead, but
Yeah.
they went farther in high school type thing?
Well,
Or did they,
Jerome.
you don't know.
Jerome did.
He went on past
Yeah,
8th
and
grade.
of course Lorraine
Uh-huh.
and Claire's. They kept all the smarts until they got down to those kids, I guess.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have any up above.
When were you fluent in English, Grandpa? How old were you? Remember when you?
In the 8th grade there?
In English.
In English, how old were you when you could really speak and write English?
Oh, by the way, in that school, we was converted into English then, but we still talked German. And there was one German girl that also talked in this country school that I went to at Grantsburg there. And we would talk to her in German, and it would just rile the other kids because they didn't know what we were saying. And we just thought that was the biggest joke we could do, you know. And of course, we'd talk about them other kids, and that was good entertainment. Trouble is, she wasn't very cute, if I remember. But we did have a lot of fun talking
So
German.
did your mom and dad eventually learn English?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
did you do
yeah,
all the
yeah.
interpreting for them
No,
for a
they
while?
were converted.
Because of the kids or because of?
Of the sales, when he was selling, did he
I
have
don't
to
know, they
sell?
gradually converted to it, yeah. I think they almost lost the German speech too after a while, but I think they didn't lose it like I did.
Did your parents move over here from German or did they?
No, no,
they're
their
born-
parents did. We're on the move again now. We're moving again. We moved just only a few miles from this Richie farm that we did. There we farmed full-time on our own, I think. We just rented the land. And that was next to the Trade River. I still remember going through, that was a beautiful road way back to the river, and we'd set trap nets in the river to catch fish. And we knew there was a law against it, but we wanted the fish worse, I guess, so. We got suckers and pickerel, this was in the spring. And my mother canned or pickled them. So we had fish during the summer, which they weren't too bad. I myself did a lot of the milking. We had milk cows. Also picked ear corn by hand with a team of horses. Unloaded it by hand. I made one load, like 50 bushels or so in the morning, and that was a big job for me. Sometimes I made another load in the afternoon, not very often. So outside of that, we did a lot of, anytime we could shoot a jackrabbit, that was good for the table. And we'd sure try that. We also we didn't know what the laws were at that time. We knew what they were, but food on the table was more important. So we'd shoot deer if we had a chance. There wasn't a lot of deer around at that time yet. There was some.
Do you carry a gun?
So we weren't there very long either. So we're on the move again. In '39 we moved to east of Luck, Wisconsin. Farm was called the Avi Farm. I really think my dad looked behind the barn to see how big the manure pile was. I think that's the one he rented, because we hauled manure for 2 weeks straight by hand. I'll tell you, the first couple of days we couldn't move. We were so stiff, you know, from that. We weren't in shape.
You loaded it by hand, and you went out to the field and unloaded it by hand?
Yeah. And
So you just had a wagon and then some horses that you
Yeah.
put on
Yeah.
there. And
the horses never got tired.
So then you moved all your cows with you to this new farm, right? You took your herd with you?
Yeah.
Remember how you moved the animals?
No, I can't picture of us how we moved. And I'll tell you, after a week though, we were in shape. We almost enjoyed doing the pitching in manure. That was a challenge, almost. But God, that was tiresome. But yeah, it just seemed like it was because that Avi farm, or that Richie farm, that had a manure pile, man, that about as big as Goodyear here. I don't remember if I ever got that cleaned up. You know how they got it out there with those manure carriers? You've seen those? You had a little trip up on the end, and you'd push this manure carrier out with this bucket on. It rolled out there by itself, and then it'd trip when it hit this little lever up there, and then it'd roll back by itself. It was really automated.
Rolled on a cable.
Yeah,
overhead
a cable. There's a post way on there, and of course you could move that stop wherever the manure pile got too high. You moved it over. Then you know how those work.
Or
Yeah.
seen them work.
Yeah.